Imagine an empire so powerful that kings across an entire continent were afraid of it. Now imagine that empire collapsing after a single battle against an army far smaller than its own. It sounds like a scene from a movie. But it actually happened in the year 1212 at a place in Spain called Las Navas de Tolosa. Around 12,000 Crusader soldiers faced one of the largest and most powerful armies in medieval Europe. The enemy they were fighting was the Almohad Empire, a superpower that ruled huge lands across North Africa and Spain. Most people at the time believed the Almohads could never be defeated. But something incredible happened that summer day. A risky plan, a hidden path through the mountains, and one brave cavalry charge completely changed the battle and helped change the future of Spain forever. But to understand why this battle was so shocking, we need to go back a few years. At the beginning of the 1200s, the Almohad Empire was incredibly strong. Their rulers controlled powerful cities like Seville, Córdoba, and Granada, which were full of trade, learning, and wealth. Their capital was in Marrakesh, in North Africa, and from there they ruled a huge empire that stretched across the sea into Spain. They also had a powerful army. Because of this strength, the Christian kingdoms in northern Spain were often on the defensive. These kingdoms like Castile, Aragon, and Navarre were constantly worried about Almohad invasions. Then, in 1195, something happened that made things even worse. At a battle called Alarcos, the Almohad army defeated the Christian forces badly. The defeat was so crushing that many people thought the Christian kingdoms might never recover. For years after that battle, the Almohads looked unstoppable. But history can change in surprising ways. In 1212, the Pope in Rome called for a crusade in Spain. A crusade was a religious war where Christian knights and soldiers joined together to fight for their faith. Several kings answered the call. There was King Alfonso VIII of Castile, who had been defeated years earlier at Alarcos and wanted revenge. There was King Pedro II of Aragon, and King Sancho VII of Navarre, known for his great size and strength. Knights and soldiers from other parts of Europe also joined the army. At first, the crusading army was very large. Thousands of soldiers marched south toward Almohad territory. But problems started almost immediately. Some of the foreign crusaders behaved badly. Instead of focusing on the war, they began looting towns and attacking civilians. This caused arguments with the Spanish kings who were trying to lead the army. Soon many of the foreign fighters decided they had had enough. They simply left and returned home. This was a huge problem. The Crusader army suddenly became much smaller. By the time the army continued its march south, the main fighting force may have been only about 12,000 to 14,000 soldiers. Meanwhile, the Almohad ruler, called the Caliph Muhammad al-Nasir, had gathered a massive army to stop them. The Crusaders were clearly outnumbered. And things were about to get even harder. As the army moved forward, they reached a huge mountain range called the Sierra Morena. These mountains blocked the road into southern Spain. The Almohad army had already secured the main mountain passes. If the Crusaders tried to go through them, they would be trapped in narrow paths where enemy soldiers could easily attack from above. It was the perfect trap. For several days the Crusaders searched for another way across the mountains. Supplies were running low, and soldiers were becoming tired and discouraged. Then something unexpected happened. A local shepherd approached the Christian leaders. He told them he knew about a secret path through the mountains, one that the Almohad army wasn't guarding. This was risky. The shepherd could have been lying or leading them into danger. But the Crusader leaders decided they had no other choice. So the army followed him. Slowly and carefully, they moved through the hidden mountain paths. It was a difficult journey, but the plan worked. The Crusaders suddenly appeared behind the Almohad defensive positions. The enemy army had not expected them to come from that direction. Now both sides knew a huge battle was about to happen. When the Crusaders saw the Almohad army, it was an intimidating sight. Thousands of soldiers filled the battlefield. In the center of the camp stood the Caliph and his personal guard. These guards were famous in historical stories. According to some chronicles, they were surrounded by chains that linked them together, making it impossible to run away. Whether the chains were completely real or partly symbolic, the message was clear: these soldiers would fight until the end. The Crusaders knew this battle could decide the future of Spain. On July 16, 1212, the battle began. The Almohad army attacked first. Large groups of soldiers charged forward, pushing hard against the Christian lines. The fighting was fierce and chaotic. At first, the Crusaders struggled to hold their ground. Some units even began to fall back. For a moment, it looked like history might repeat itself and the Almohads would win another great victory like they had at Alarcos. But the Christian kings rallied their troops and pushed them forward again. The battle turned into a massive clash of soldiers, horses, and weapons. Then came the moment that changed everything. King Sancho VII of Navarre led a powerful cavalry charge straight toward the center of the Almohad army. His knights rode their horses directly at the Caliph's elite guard. This was extremely dangerous. The center of the enemy army was the most heavily defended place on the battlefield. But if the Crusaders could break through, it might cause panic among the Almohad soldiers. Sancho's knights smashed into the guard with incredible force. The fighting was intense and desperate. According to stories written after the battle, the knights broke through the chain barrier protecting the Caliph's position. Once that defensive line collapsed, something dramatic happened. The Almohad soldiers began to panic. In medieval battles, armies depended heavily on confidence and morale. When soldiers believed they were losing, fear could spread very quickly. And that's exactly what happened. Some Almohad units began to retreat. Other soldiers saw them running and assumed the battle was lost. Within a short time, the retreat turned into complete chaos. The huge Almohad army started fleeing the battlefield. The Caliph escaped with some of his men, but the battle was clearly over. Against the odds, the smaller Crusader army had won. But the importance of this battle went far beyond that single day. After the defeat at Las Navas de Tolosa, the Almohad Empire began to weaken. Their power in Spain slowly faded as Christian kingdoms gained confidence and territory. Over the next decades, important cities like Córdoba and Seville were captured by Christian forces. The long struggle known as the Reconquista continued for centuries. Finally, in 1492, the last Muslim kingdom in Spain, Granada, surrendered. Many historians believe that the victory at Las Navas de Tolosa was the moment when the balance of power finally began to shift. The battle also created legends that lasted for hundreds of years. King Sancho VII's charge against the guarded center became a famous symbol of bravery. Even today, the chains from that story appear on the coat of arms of Navarre, reminding people of that dramatic moment in history. Stories like this remind us that history isn't always decided by the biggest army or the strongest empire. Sometimes it's decided by courage, smart decisions, and a little bit of luck. And in the summer of 1212, a determined army of about 12,000 warriors changed the future of Spain forever. If you enjoyed this story and want to learn more about incredible battles that shaped history, make sure to like the video and subscribe. And if you want another amazing story where a small force defeats a much bigger one, check out the next video on your screen.